to DMs of the PM. Why do we call ourselves that? Because we are DMs who like to talk in the PM and have a lot of late night sessions sometimes. Joining us today is me, the host, Kikoh Kibigao, as well as our other guest slash hosts, Robin Ledham, Lex
Hello
Martin,
there.
and Paulo
Hi.
Carmelo. Welcome back, guys. Now, today's topic is actually something that's really, really fun and something that I think every DM always looks at, and that is magical items. The fun, the fantastical, and sometimes the thing that could bite yourself back in the ass as a DM, the magical items. And first of all, what are magical items? Well, in D&D, since it is a magical world, there are items out in the world, whether they be legendary, wondrous, or common or uncommon. Items that could be anything that's utility based, a weapon, uh, transportation, anything you could think of, and it does specific things for specific characters. Now, with that being said, there are differences in magical items, such as ones that are non-attunable and ones that are attunable. Attunable items are items that you have to spend like most of a day, um, basically melding with or basically being around with for a character before they could actually use it. Other items that are not attunable are items that any character could pick up and use instantly. Now, that being said, let's get to some of our favorite magical items. All right.
Yeah.
Now, for the first thing, we're going to be talking about weapons. So, anybody want to start off with some of their favorite magical weapons?
I'll be last because I don't actually use much magic items, but I will need to, and I'm starting to after this session. Hey!
Hey.
Okay. And if no one's got anything so far yet, I have something for sure.
No.
One's kind of like they're a similar weapon. They just have a little bit of a different mechanic. And it's the 9 lives stealer sword and the Vorpal sword.
Ooh.
I
So
saw
basically,
that.
what this does is the 9 life stealer sword. It gives you a +2 bonus to attack and damage rolls. It is considered a magical item, obviously. The weapon has a 1d8 +1 charges. If you score a critical hit against a creature that has a fewer than 100 hit points, it must succeed on a DC 15 Constitution saving throw, or be slain instantly as the sword tears through its life force and from its body. A construct or undead is immune to this. The sword loses 1 charge if the creature is slain. When the sword has no charges remaining, it loses this property. Now, it's very similar to the Vorpal sword because basically what the Vorpal sword is that it's a +3 magic item, and if you roll a natural 20, you basically cut off the creature's head. If the creature cannot live with its head, then it is instantly dead. If it can live without its head, then it's still alive, but it takes a 6d8 slashing damage from the sword. So
Damn.
it's somewhat similar, but a little bit different in mechanics. But it kind of gives the same purpose. That's one of mine. Another one of mine is the Lucky Blade, and this one is a +1 to bonus attack damage rolls. So it's a little lower than the other ones, but it does have a certain caveat. It gives you a +1 bonus to saving throws, and has a 1d4 charges of the spell Wish.
Ooh.
Very
How-
tricky spell.
Yes, very tricky spell. Good players will know how to use it well. Other players will make fun situations out of them. And once it has 0 charges, it can no longer. The sword loses all of its properties, pretty much.
Okay.
So there is a give or take with these swords.
So it's kind of like a sword that is the same one as Wish, where you can only use it for a certain amount, and once it's gone, it's gone. Is that what it pretty much is?
With the spell Wish, you have a chance to lose it. Or not lose it. You have a 1/3 chance of losing it or not losing it.
Yeah.
With this sword, you have a 1d4 roll, and whatever you rolled is the amount of charges is on the sword. Once you use all your charges, you have the wish spell no longer exists in your sword.
Okay. I do have a follow-up question because I am pretty excited about that sword. My first question is, and you guys can also answer it once it's your guys' turn, but how did you find that sword and what was the purpose? Like, how did you realize, oh shit, this is going to be useful to my session?
Oh,
That particular sword.
well, I didn't really think about it being used in my session per se. I kind of thought of like weapons that I just tend to be like, oh, this is an awesome weapon, and it has a cool utility to it that like,
Mhm.
or a cool factor to it, that could just change the entire course of the campaign. Which
Oh,
legendary magical items should be, because these are like these ones I've seen right now are legendary magical items.
yeah.
Um, I didn't really think about that. How I came across it was just really through the PHB and Xanathar's Guide for Everything.
Just going through it. Nice, nice, nice.
Yeah, so
Um, go on.
yep. Um, another one that I really like is the Hammer of Thunderbolts. So, as a big
Heard
Thor
about that.
fan, this is like the closest thing to it. Pretty much, it's a very unique item because it requires like a two-parter to it, and that second part will be coming into a different section of this. You get a +1 damage to attack and damage rolls, sorry, and you get the Giant's Bane factor to it, uh, but you must be wearing a belt of giant strength and the gauntlets of ogre power to attune to, and those have to all be attuned to your character. Uh, if any of those attunements end, then you don't get this cool factor that it has, and that is when you're attuned to it, your strength score increases by 4. It could exceed 20, but not 30. So later down the road, your gauntlets of ogre power can increase your strength by 21. Your belt, depending on what you get, could increase your score by 22, 23, and 24. And if you
Jesus.
are a barbarian, basically you could be capping out at nearly 30, 28 to 30 strength if you are by level 20.
It's
But
like
the
plus
thing is
10
that's
mod,
if you are level 20, and that depends on how long your campaign has been going and how your DM tries to give out these items.
That's pretty much a mythical weapon at this point. Yeah.
Yeah. So basically, what happens is when you roll a 20 on an attack roll, maybe with this weapon, against the giant must succeed on a DC 17 Constitution saving throw, or instantly die. The hammer also has 5 charges when attuned to it. You can spend 1 charge to make a ranged weapon attack with the hammer, hurling it as if it's as it has the thrown property, and with a normal range of 20 feet and a long range of 60 feet. If the attack hits, the hammer unleashes a thunderclap audible out to 300 feet. The target and every creature within a 30 feet radius of it must succeed a DC 17 Constitution saving throw or be stunned at the end of your next turn. The hammer regains 1d4 plus 1 expended charges daily at dawn. So it's a cool weapon, but to have its full effect, you have to have two other magical items with it as well.
You
So,
said Giant's
it-
Bane, right?
Yes, and you need to have the gauntlets of ogre power, and you need to have a belt of giant strength, depending on whatever there is, because there's different levels of the belt of giant strength that I'll be getting to in the next part of this
Nice.
items list.
Nice.
That's wow. I can't wait to use and not use that in my campaigns if it ever gets to that point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The whole
Anyone
like
jump in on any
Walmart
other
list.
Yeah.
I have 2 more weapons just in case.
I
Same.
only had one. I was like, oh, I picked one for each category. So I was
Oh,
like,
nice.
ooh,
Yeah.
something that stood out to me. But
Yeah.
but for my weapon, I had Frostbrand. It's this really cute weapon. It has a wolf at the hilt, and then it has a gold lining, and it's this sharp long sword, and so it does 1d8 damage, and it also does 1d6 cold damage, and when you're holding onto it, you have resistance to fire, and during an event where you are in a freezing temperature, the weapon will shed 10 feet radius of light.
Nice.
Also, while having it, all flames within 30 feet is extinguished.
Just like that. Damn.
I like that.
Just like that. Just like that. Non-magical flames, though.
Oh.
Okay. But that's still really cool. I always love weapons that kind of give like you could give like an RP quality to them in a way.
Mm.
So you could
Mm-hmm.
definitely like scare like a band of kobolds or like a bunch of goblins by making them think you're a god by brandishing that sword and all their torches go out.
Yeah, pretty much.
It's like the opposite of a
Um,
flaming sword. It doesn't flame the sword. It extinguishes other flames around it.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
But to answer Robin's question, if I were to include this in one of my campaigns, they would acquire it, of course, in this frozen wasteland, and some mythical legend may have dropped it somewhere and is being guarded by several ice golems. But we can go into that later.
Yeah, that's a good storyline though.
That sounds awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you. I just made it up right now, actually.
Improv at
Hey.
its finest.
There you go. You can't be a good DM
Cheers.
without some improv in you.
Yeah.
But yeah, dude, I love that sword. I honestly, like, as you're speaking about it too, I just pictured like Frostmourne from like World of Warcraft, except with like a wolf hilt at the top, and I was like, that looks cool.
Nice.
Awesome. Lex, do you have any weapons you wanna highlight?
Well, I'm a fan of swords that can do elemental things, and so I think it's awesome that Paulo picked that one because the one I was going to talk about was Flame Tongue, which I have given to somebody, and it's
Nice.
basically a lightsaber. But I mean, the concept is pretty much the same thing. You speak a command word to the sword, and flames erupt from the blade, and it's just kind of BA overall, and it makes a bright light in a 40 feet radius. Dim light for an additional 40 feet, and then you get a 2d6 fire damage, which is like just really cool. And like again, I think that concept of too, like that you go into a fight and you're just like, hey, I got a sword, and then you can just stop the fight by making that sword ignite and seem like you're 10 times more powerful. And the blade is just pretty because it's like a gold hilt and it kind of curves into like really sharp points, and so I really enjoy it. And then my other one was going to be Oath Bow. I don't know if you guys know what Oath Bow is, but it's basically
Nope.
you speak when you use like another command phrase, which is swift death to you who have wronged me. You basically kind of pinpoint on a specific person, and they become your sworn enemy until that enemy dies, or until the dawn of 7 days later. And I just think that's really cool because it kind of, especially if you have a villain or you have a character who has a background where like that can be so fitting to have, and the fact that it just gives you when you attack them you advantage on the roll, and then you also like pretty much get through all like the range things that can get in the way of it, and they get an extra 3d6 of piercing damage. Is so cool, and it's ranged, and it's also pretty. So that's mine, and it's a cool name, Oathbow. Because every time I hear it, I think of Oathkeeper from Kingdom Hearts.
Oh, that's
which is one of my favorite keyblades. So yes.
Nice.
Yep.
I know. I think who the person that you gave it to, we're talking about the player, and I can't wait to see all of the effects that sort is gonna do to the party, the player, which I think I'm part of that party, I believe. Yeah. So for me, I'm gonna go in the other direction of the weapons category and not do something that is considered powerful, but it's something that is considered really great for role playing. And I never use this. However, I have seen YouTube videos of people telling the story, and it's like a focal point. What am I talking about, ladies and gentlemen? I am talking about the short sword of warning. This magical weapon warns you of danger. While the weapon is on your person, you have advantage on initiative rolls. In addition, you and any of your companions within 30 feet of you cannot be surprised, except when incapacitated by something other than magical sleep. The weapon magically awakens you and your companions within range if any of you are sleeping naturally when combat begins. It's a finesse weapon, so when you make when you make an attack with a finesse weapon, use your choice of strength or dexterity modifier for the attack and damage rolls. I don't really. Oh, it's a 1d6 piercing damage. It's a finesse and light weapon. It does require attunement, and that means that correct me if I'm wrong, but when you say attunement, it means that you need to kind of get used to the weapon for a good while, and then you become used to it before you can actually use it to its full potential. Is that
You have to
correct?
spend, I believe, a short or long rest with the weapon to basically meld with the weapon.
Yeah, that's attunement. The reason why I love this sword is because of the video that I watch it with. The um the DM made it funny to the point where it does warn you of danger. However, it only warns the person who's holding it, and it also only gives them a whisper. So they have to roll a perception check to see if they recognize if the sword is giving them a warning. And then let's say that they mess up and it does a it well, not mess up. Let's say that they still go through trouble even though the sword warns them, because the sword is pretty much just gonna say, here's a warning. This is a warning. I'm warning you. Like, that's it. They have no other evidence of what that warning is other than, I'm warning you. And then at the end, I warned you! Every single time that they mess up, I warned you! I warned you! So yeah, it's like, it's a troll sword, essentially. And this sword was presented to the party in a way that makes it feel like it's the sword of King Arthur kind of thing. They had the light shining on it and everything. It made it look so grandiose, and you realize, I warned you, like that. So yeah, that's my interesting sword.
Nice. I think to go off of that too, my personal favorite item in the entire game, one I've never played with before, but I always think about it, because of its just immense fucking power. Um, and this is a specific sorcerer, wizard, or warlock type of weapon, and it is the Staff of the Magi. So, and this is granted this and the hammer earlier. I feel like if I were to incorporate into this, would be the incorporation to a certain type of moment where the characters have to gather these items to fight something that would warrant these items being used. And basically what it does is that the staff can be wielded by as a quarter staff. It grants a +2 bonus to attack and damage rolls while you hold it. You also gain a +2 bonus to your spell attack rolls. The staff has 50 charges of the following properties. It regains 4d6 plus 2 expended charges daily at dawn. If you expend the charges, roll a d20. Roll a d20. The staff regains 1d12 plus 1 charges. Basically, it has a spell absorption ability where while holding the staff, you have advantage on saving throws against the spell. In addition, you could use a reaction when another creature casts a spell on target that targets only you. If you do so, your staff absorbs the magical spell, canceling its effect, gaining the number of charges equal to the absorbed spell level. However,
Damn.
if doing so brings the staff charges to an above of 50, the staff explodes.
It's too much power.
The staff explodes as if you activated a retributive strike. But one of the cool things about this staff is that what's the worst thing about spellcasters is that you have to keep track of your spell slots, right?
Yep.
Well, with this staff, while holding the staff, you could use an action to expend some of its charges. So those 50 charges earlier, well, they all get spent this way. Basically, you get to cast spells using those spells, those charges. From there, they include your spell DC and your spellcasting ability. You get to have the Conjure Elemental spell, which is 7 charges, and you also have the Dispel Magic, which is 3 charges. Fireball at 7th level with 7 charges. Flaming Sphere at 2 charges. Ice Storm at 4 charges. Invisibility at 2 charges. Knock at 2 charges. Lightning Bolt at 7th level with 7 charges. Pass Walls with 5 charges. Plane Shift for 7 charges. Telekinesis for 5 charges. Wall of Fire for 4 charges. Or Web for 2 charges. So
God damn.
so those are that's how much charges you have to spend per each of those spells. You have a total of 50 to begin.
What type is this in terms of like uncommon?
This is a legendary
rare,
item.
It's a legendary.
This is a legendary item.
It sounds like it.
Yeah. You can also use an action to cast one of the following spells from the staff without using any of the charges, which is Arcane Lock, Detect Magic, and Large Reduce, Light, Mage Hand, or Protection from good or evil. So, yeah.
So, have a nice DM, and maybe you'll get.
Maybe
this.
you'll get that. Yeah.
Also, using the staff, you have a 50% chance of instantly traveling to a random plane of existence once the explosion happens.
What?
That seems
And-
kind of game breaking to me,
Yeah.
in my
If you
opinion.
you
That's
take the
a
force
lot.
you still take the force damage of 16 times the number of charges of the staff. So if this does explode in your hands, you have a good chance of killing yourself.
Where's the nerf?
Yeah.
Don't tell me that's the only nerf there, because that's way.
And there's a dexterity. So they have this, you have to pass a 17 dexterity saving throw. On a failed save, the creature takes the amount of damage based on how far it is away from the point of origin. And on a successful save, the creature takes half as much damage. So, and the way it is 10 feet away or closer, 8 times the number of charges of the staff. So, if your charge is overstaffed by, for example, 60, so it's 60 times 8.
What?
11,
what
11
class
to 20,
is this?
then it's
What
6
class
times
is this?
6 times 60. If it's 21 to 30 feet away, then it's 4 times 60.
What class is this? Geared
This is
towards?
meant for. These are limited to sorcerers, warlocks, and wizards.
Jeez. This is why I don't F with magic items, because I don't know the full potential of them, and I might give something like that to someone. I'm like, whoop, there goes all my encounters because they just throwing. I don't
Yeah,
know.
it is
Reflex.
definitely in my opinion, the most powerful weapon in the game, for sure. But it does have that caveat of if for example you start some sort of combat, you have like 49 charges in there, and then you absorb something, and then it's like, 9 or whatever spell or 5th level spell or something, and you decide to absorb it, and then you didn't count and it explodes, that could kill the wielder for sure.
How common is that situation though in terms of that? Because honestly, you could just
Depends on how smart your player is, to be honest, and
Yeah.
also like if they, I don't know, it all comes down to what happens and how you play it out.
if that would be suggested in your campaign, would you ban that or would you reskin it or something?
I would say if I was to add this in my game, you're in some serious shit.
Right, Lex?
All right, now we know.
Now we know better.
up.
Thank you for letting us
Avoid
know.
it, guys. Avoid it. It means
I
otherwise.
think that's kind of what like all these magic items kind of tend to do, is you kind of have to scale too. So if you're gonna give your players this ability to find these legendary items, you definitely have to make sure that whatever they're fighting, like it makes sense for them to use these things, and not just, oh yeah, he pops up, the entire encounter is done in one round.
Well, and I think that you mentioned, like, I think Robin, that's a good point to bring up about the scaling. Is I had times of just altering my items, either to give it something else extra that flavors to the character particularly, or to scale it down so that way its true potential is revealed over time, or I completely change, or I take out a certain portion of it to kind of make it more balanced. And so you can do those things too. Is that
Yeah.
like anything in the guide, you can use a specific item and be like, oh, I like that, and yeah. But that kind of goes into a later topic. But just
Yeah.
saying.
And also, kind of like in an RP sense, I could kind of picture this if somebody, depending on how bad the fight has gone so far, and literally like almost everyone is dead or dying, and you have the sorcerer, warlock, or wizard there, and they're standing up there, and they've counted the amount of charges there are left on there, and if whatever they're fighting decides to throw some sort of spell at them, and they decide to absorb it, and as a last act RP wise to sacrifice themselves and kill the villain, they could basically sacrifice themselves, wiping them out, saving the rest of the party.
What you mean by, you know how it catches catches the spell and the magic gives absorber to the staff and the staff explodes, and the wizard, the spellcaster has a DC 17 to get away from the blast, right? Or is it an automatic hit?
No, it's a DC 17 saving throw.
Yeah, it's a D17.
Yeah. And
I
then
mean-
they could, depending on how far they are from the staff or whatever the staff when it explodes, is there's a multiplication modifier. There's a ×8 to it.
Whew. All right.
So that's going to be like 55 times 8. I don't think any wizard's going to survive that. I don't think any sorcerer's going to survive that.
Yeah, right. That's true. All right. Yeah.
Yeah. So, that's that weapon.
That's a lot to handle.
And now we are halfway through our podcast, everybody.
I know. I realized I was like, ooh,
Yeah.
we just talked about weapons for like half the podcast time.
To be fair, the most appealing items tend to be the weapons or the utility stuff.
Yeah. So it's very
But
true.
with that being said, if anybody doesn't have any more weapons, we can go ahead and move on to the support items. If anybody has any support items.
Can you define support?
Support items could be anything that gives a defensive modifier to yourself, or could give your defensive modifiers to anybody else, as well as anything that kind of like increases your stats without inherently boosting your combat. Like basically, it could boost your combat indirectly, but
It's kind of like armor,
basically anything that
boots, stuff like
increases your,
that.
your anything that could increase your stats, give you defensive higher defensive properties, or like enhance yourself in a sense, but not in the way to harm somebody else.
Okay. Um, the first thing I honestly thought of when it comes to doing support items is pretty much adamantium armor, just because when it comes to adamantium armor, if you the person who wears it, no one can do a crit on them at all whatsoever. Even if it's an automatic crit, they will not be critted at all, and that is a fucking legendary move right there. I would
Mhm.
probably in a regular campaign, I would not approve of adamantium armor unless the situation actually begs for it. But in a one shot, I use that to fuck around with people. Like, hey, PvP, adamantium armor, let's see what you got, kind of thing. But yeah, adamantium armor, I haven't really read much about it. Let me see if I can pull it up right now. Hold on real quick. Adamantine. It's actually adamantine armor, not adamantium. Adamantium is the element. Adamantine. This suit of armor is reinforced with adamantine, one of the hardest substances in existence. Like I said, while you're wearing it, any critical hit against you becomes a normal hit. It's heavy as fuck, but it's also tough as fuck. So yeah, that's my support of choice. And now, go on, you guys. Yeah, I already told you guys how I would introduce it. So yeah, cool. I think I answered all the questions.
Well, mine would be also be an armor, but I've always wanted to mess around with cursed items, which I potentially have not done yet. But I like the demon armor too because I saw it and I remember like I was flipping through the Dungeon Master's book, which I'm doing right now, and I saw it and I was like, oh, that's gonna be really cool. Like, what does it do? And so I read it and I was like, oh, cool. And then like in bold, it just says curse, and I'm like, oh, what does that mean? And this is like as a newbie, but the cool concept is while wearing this armor, you gain +1 bonus to AC, so basically you are harder to hit. You can understand and speak abyssal, which to me is always an amazing thing when someone can speak abyssal. In addition, the armor's claw gauntlets turn unarmed strikes with your hands into magic weapons that can deal slashing damage with a +1 bonus attack and damage rolls and a damage die of 1d8. So the fact that you now especially because some either structures or enemies are resisted unless you have or even immune unless you use something magical against them. That's really cool, especially if you're unarmed. And so it seems really nice. But then you have this curse where if you don the armor, and unless you use a remove curse spell, these certain traits happen. Where basically you have disadvantage on attack rolls against demons and on saving throws against their spells and special abilities. So I would be super mean, and I would put it in the mid-tier level of some kind of cave or in the nine hells where there's no demons around. They're there and they're coming, but they're not there yet. So you don it and you really want to wear it, and then before they can get out of that fortress, I'm like, oh yeah, the thing you have to fight is a demon, and then your friends, your party has to survive, or you, if you're alone, have to find a more ingenious way to get out, and now that armor becomes more of a burden than
That's
its
a troll.
benefit.
That's such a troll move, and I love
Which
it.
I like. So I like things that support and can give consequence. Just not all the time, but to use it as a good story beat. That's mine.
Paulo?
So when I thought of support, I totally thought of helping other people.
Yeah.
And so getting this item. So I chose the necklace of prayer beads.
Dude, that's a
which
great
is
choice.
Yeah, it's this very beautiful necklace which is composed of either black pearls, aquamarines, or topaz. And but the repercussion is if a bead is removed, then that aspect of the necklace is no longer capable, and so you'll lose that effect. And those effects would be, it would grant you bless, cure wounds, or lesser restoration, greater restoration, branding smite, planar ally, or windwalk, depending on what the GM rolls. And so how I would implement that in the game is that um, I think there's this city. There's this very conservative city that I have in my campaign called Strophe, and it's very religious. So the priestess is having a problem with this exorcism, and so this woman wants to have her daughter back because they've been claimed by a demon, and once they have her back, she would reward them with the necklace of prayer beads.
Nice. I like that. I've always loved the necklace of prayer beads. They're it's always been a unique item.
Can I just say, every time people are naming something I don't understand, I just use the same book and I just flip to it. I'm like, what is that? What does it look like? So this is cool. I like this.
Two of my first supportive items are ones that complement the other two weapons earlier. One of them is the robes, the arch magi. These are legendary as well too for sorcerer, warlock, or wizard. Basically, what happens with this is that they gain the following benefits. It's basically these wizard-like robes that are much more elegant. And what you do is you get your armor class is 15 plus your dexterity modifier. You have advantage on saving throws against spells and other magical effects, and you get your spell DC. Your spell save DC and your spell attack bonus increased by 2. So if you were to combo this with the staff, you have yourself a really powerful BBEG.
You would give it to a BBG.
Or it's something like this, because one of the things I would do for the robes, I would most likely give that to a enemy that you guys would have to fight, or would encounter to fight. And if you guys do decide to loot their body, this is something that you guys can find. So that's how I would kind of put this robe into it for sure. Would I put the robe and the staff in the same campaign? Probably not. But it all depends on what happens.
You can
The
only
next
work.
is the belt of giant strength, and this is the one that complements the hammer. And these ones come in I think 5 different forms. One is the hill giant strength, which increases a person's strength by 21. It is a rare item. The stone giant / frost giant, it increases that person's strength by 23, and that's very rare. Fire giants, that increases their strength by 25, and it's very rare. Cloud giant increases the person's strength by 27. It is legendary. And storm giants is just 29, and that is legendary.
Are these I guess items only meant for giant race, or can they be for anything?
These could be these are requires attunement. Anybody could wear these, but this if you want to get that full combo with the hammer, using this is integral, because without it you won't get that Giant's Bane buff.
Okay.
Mhm.
Damn. All right.
But to get away from all of the legendary items and the wild craziness of Endgame, I've had something a bit less powerful, but still really useful, and that's the Periep of Wound Closure. And this is something that was in Season 2 of Critical Role, and also one that I use a lot for my Artificer. And it is, while you're wearing this pendant, you stabilize whenever you're dying at the start of your turn. In addition, whenever you roll hit die, you regain hit points double to the amount of hit points it restores. So, for example, you fall into battle, you don't have to roll a saving throw your next turn. You get to rise back from the dead with 1 hit point.
Whoa, that's tight.
And when you have and to be clear, the whole double your hit die regain, that's when you roll your own hit die. That's not when somebody heals you.
Oh, okay.
So if you decide to go into a battle and you do something crazy that quote unquote sacrifices stuff, or do something crazy that causes you to die, you literally just come back from it, and then during your short rest you could just heal up a little bit more, because you get to double your hit point damage dice. So
yeah, that's I actually want to ask how did you discover that? You said through Critical Role, right? Like, can you tell us the scenario?
the scenario that happened here, I believe they went to go. I forgot who they were fighting. Some sort of shade. It was
Wait, is
during
it
episode like
campaign
12,
1 or campaign 2? Because
2,
it's campaign 2.
campaign 2, and one of the characters has this. So,
Oh, okay. If
but
it's
the
a
thing is, I also came about this because it is one of the items you can make as an artificer.
okay, gotcha. All right, I won't ask about Critical Role because it is campaign 2. I'm sorry, Lex.
Another item I really like is the Amulet of Health, and this is one of those items that are very unique to other items because they don't just increase your stats by 1 or 2. These give you a hard modifier, different, like a hard stat increase. So what happens is this requires attunement. Your Constitution score is now 19 while you're wearing this amulet, and it has no effect on you if your Constitution is higher than a 19. So, for example, if you are you know, a wizard or a rogue who has a very low Constitution score, if you grab this item, your score is immediately a 19, and you get a +4 bonus to your saves and to your modifiers. Pretty
Damn,
much.
I want to get
And that is
that.
also an item that artificers can make.
And then that's the category from support, right? Or is that for
He's
trans?
making up.
And
He's making up.
yeah, there's like 2 more. The quick rings. One is the Ring of Protection, gives you +1 bonus to AC and saving throws. And then the other one is the Ring of Free Action, where, difficult terrain doesn't cost you any movement. And that's amazing.
Nice.
Yeah, and you can't be paralyzed or restrained. So
I'm gonna have to read all of those items that you just mentioned, Kiko, because holy crap, there's a lot in there.
I'm going to spend the night with this book.
the amount of
Thriller about
because I play an artificer in a different campaign makes me really look at a lot of magic items, and also the 2 previous one-shot battle royales that I've been a part of have made me really look at magic items.
Right? Yeah, you definitely put me in a twist there, man, with the adamantine armor and stuff. Yeah, spoiler alert, he's the one who put that adamantine armor in his character and made me read more about that thing. Made you realize a lot of stuff. Yeah. Do you want to move on to the next
Yes.
type item? It's like
The next type item is
there.
transportation. What's a fun way to get around with not just by horse, but by random items that can take you anywhere?
A whole new world. I'm sorry, I'm going to say that.
Like, would you like to begin with that one?
No, I love the flying carpet. Again, I'll say for Critical Role, but it's just because
I remember that.
but coming into the game, the idea of what a flying carpet can do, and just the amount of maneuverability it gives, the way that it can get you above the field and you move faster. It's great for combat and it's great for transportation, and at the same time it's extremely fragile, which makes it the way that you can balance it. Like if it gets damaged and you're also in the air, you're losing your wonderful item and you're also plummeting to your death. But I love that, and that's the only one that I can genuinely think of outside of homebrewed things that I've either been given or have seen that I thought was a really fun transportation device. So I'm actually kind of curious what are other things that people like.
Paulo?
Well, a quick one would be the Helm of Teleportation, which looks like a ninja helm, which is really cute. It's a black ninja helm with gold wrapped around it, and so you have 3 uses of teleportation. My only thing as a DM to limit that would be you're limited to teleporting places that you already know. So it can't be somewhere that you haven't explored already.
That'd be too much hacks. Definitely a good control.
Nice.
I agree with that. That is actually one of the items on my list.
And it's very Nightcrawler-esque because he can only teleport to places that he's seen, or
Is that what yeah. Oh yeah. That is his ability.
so I like that.
I've been working on a Nightcrawler build for so long. And that is one of the items on my list.
For
But
mine,
yeah, go ahead.
for mine, it's not exactly a magical transportation item. It's more just a mode of transportation that I've actually used pretty not significantly, but good enough time because of my one shots. And that is a ship, but more than a regular ship, it is a flying ship. So that's not
Yes.
exactly magical. However, it's a mode of transportation that I used a lot, to the point where I actually have a separate stat sheet for it. And I've already done sort of like have used it as a mode of, like, as an environment that people fight on for obvious reasons, as well as an actual vehicle that people, y- they shoot ships. It's just it's different for me because, like any other mode of transportation, there's different components of this vehicle. Like, you have the port side, the south side, you have the cannons, you have the sail. Like, all those different things factor into your mode of transportation, that in a way, to use this item slash mode of transportation effectively, you need to work together, and not only work together to beat the other ship, but also, if anyone jumps into the ship, there's its own battle encounters. All in all, this could be its own thing that just evolves and develops to how your players play. And it's not just like it's its own organic thing, is what I'm trying to say. And that's why I love the ship, because it can be anything. It can be a flying ship from Treasure Planet, it could be a ship from Pirates of the Caribbean. You can flesh it out however much you want, and that's where I kind of went off from that. Yeah.
Nice. My number one transportation item in the game that I found was the cubic gate, and pretty much it's a cube. And what happens is that each side of the cube is basically a different pathway to a different material plane. And what happens is that on your action, you could cast the gate spell using this, or alternatively, if you use your action to press one side of it twice, you could cast the plane shift spell with a DC of 17. Um, the cube has 3 charges, and it regains 1d3 charges at dawn. So it's a cool way to get your group from one plane to another plane if you're doing like a cross plane type of campaign. Or it could be a cool like one ditch effort to just be like, fuck, all right, we got to get this guy out of here, and you get somebody out of there who's on your side. Or, for example, if you want to get an enemy out of the way, you could touch it twice and then cast the plane shift spell onto somebody else, and
Oh,
they're
damn.
gone.
For real?
Yeah. So kind of like how if you saw the battle royales from Critical Role with Keeler,
Yeah.
you could just poof somebody out of the way. At
And
least
then,
for a turn. If they're powerful enough to come back, then they can come back, but at least you get them out for a turn.
is it like a banishment spell where you banish them to another plane of existence? Is that what it is?
Plane shift basically is banishment times 10. Because with banishment you have to hold your concentration. It only lasts for like a minute.
Yeah.
With the plane shift, it could just
Before.
it's
Oh.
longer than that. Yeah.
That makes sense.
And they don't come back after a minute. For example, if you end your concentration on the plane shift, they're stuck there. Whereas banishment, they come back. Okay. Quickly enough, my favorite utility item of the game would most likely be the bag of holding.
Oh, damn it! You took mine.
I mean, if it took yours, I could talk about something else really
Yeah,
quickly.
no, yeah, no,
Since we have
I have
the
another one.
bag of holding, I'm gonna go ahead and switch over to the Horn of Valhalla.
Oh, okay.
And that is a thing where it has 4 different versions: the silver, brass, bronze, and iron, and they all have proficiencies stacked to them. And depending on what proficiency you have with them, determines how much you can summon. For example, the silver could summon. You roll 2d4 plus 2, whatever you roll. That's how many berserking barbarians show up onto the field. If you have the iron one, it's 5d4 plus 5, whatever you roll there. Then you have that many barbarians showing up the field. So you have the possibility of having 25 random spectral barbarians showing up to help you fight.
Dude, I think I've actually seen someone use that, and it's epic.
Me.
Was that you? Oh yeah, that was in your
me.
battle royale.
That
Oh,
was me.
that was you.
Yeah.
Okay, that's fucking amazing. By the way, he pulled that in our battle royale, pulled the Horn of Valhalla, and out of nowhere, about 5 to 6 Vikings showed up, all
It's 8.
in his. Is it 8? All in his side, and let's just say the encounter took way longer now, and he ended up winning. It was great. By the way, if you want, I have another thing right here that I actually do want to talk about, so you can go ahead and talk about the bag of holding.
Oh, okay, all right.
Go ahead.
So the bag of holding is pretty much an interdimensional bag. It's bigger on the inside than it is the outside. It's 2 feet in diameter, but when you open it up, it can hold up to 500 pounds, and has 64 cubic feet that you could put into it. So you could definitely hide a smaller creature, or even put a person in there if you want to transport them out, or if you were a type of group that definitely likes to hoard a bunch of items. You could definitely put a bunch of gold in there, a bunch of different items in there, and get out scot free, and not have to worry about anything being too heavy or too encumbersome for you. It does have a certain effect to it if you do want to kind of go outside of the box, but it's a feature for it that I would not recommend for any other DM. And I would say, unless that character is an artificer, they would have no idea how to work this portion of it. And that is the tearing it, which causes whatever's inside to go to a different plane. So there is no put a bag over someone's head and rip it and then cause somebody to get decapitated.
Yeah, and
So
he did that in my battle royale as well, and it caused him to kill a god that it was not supposed to be. That was supposed to be unkillable. This is why I don't put Kikoh in a battle royale, guys. He does a lot of shit. um, but yeah. Go. Is there
moving
anything
on.
else?
Anybody
Yeah.
else want to add a quick utility item?
Mine's not quick, but I will say the deck of many things is fantastic in the sense that it's utilized, but like in a variety of good or terrible ways. And basically, because I heard about this before, like mainstream things, but I was in a campaign, and my DM hinted that it could be out there in the world, and I was like, "What is a deck of many things?" In my fresh player mind, and
Naive mind.
he said basically it's a game changer. It's a game breaker, basically, because when you pull cards from this, depending on what you pull, and the cool thing is you can use actual real playing cards you would for games, and each card has a specific reference. Like the Queen of Hearts would be a key, the Jack of Hearts the knight, and each of those specific character types have something that could be beneficial to the group or the person who pulls it, or it can be against them. Um, and just to talk about two things, because I like it, is that one is simple. If you pull a star, it increases one of your ability scores by 2. The score can exceed 20, but can't exceed 24. So basically, it just makes you a bit more powerful quickly. But then I like something like this, where if you pull the rogue, a non-player character of the DM's choice becomes hostile towards you. The identity of your new enemy isn't known until the NPC or someone else reveals it. Nothing else than a wish spell or divine intervention can end the NPC's hostility towards you. So you pull that, and I'm like, cool. Which favorite side character am I gonna make kill you now? So I just like to put it into into perspective. It'd be cool if you say they had it in Lord of the Rings, and you pulled it, and Frodo was trying to like get to Mount Doom, and he pulls it, and he gets the rogue, and Sam goes crazy and just kills him like at the end. Like how terrible would that be that it just ruins the whole arc because you pulled something? But that'd be my thing. I can go into the deck of many things and its
Nice.
details later on. And I'm sorry, this will also be a place you can cut things out. My dog is whining. I don't want it to pick up. I'm gonna pick him up, and I'll be back.
It's all good. Damn it. I wanted Lex to be here because, unbeknownst to him, I have the deck of many things.
Don't pull a card.
I have the deck of many things.
Oh no.
Yes, I have. That was actually supposed to be my utility, and I was supposed to show it off with this, but Lex took it, and it's fine. But I fell in love with it. I'm gonna emphasize the deck of many things just because one, it is a game changer. Two, it is a very good way to cause, I guess, entertainment in the worst and best possible way ever. And I was first introduced to it through Critical Role because a certain barbarian pulled a card from it and got himself a knight, and that stuck to him throughout all this time. But yeah, a deck of many things. Use it where if you know what you're doing. Otherwise, if you don't know what you're doing, please don't use it. I have put it in my one shots, and it could cause a rupture in the space and time continuum. And yeah, that's all I gotta say about that. And you can get something like this from Etsy, and you can just Google deck of many things, and they have their own website, and you can just buy it off of there. I don't really have much because I don't really want to put anything on my ass, because the two things I wanted to talk about was the bag of holding, which I feel like inspired Harry Potter to create to have the Harry Potter universe to have this. It's bigger on the inside thing that they have with their magic on their universe, and I think bag of holding was a big inspiration for that, as well as the deck of many things. So I don't think really I'm not really gonna say much about that part. Okay. Yeah, we can
And
move on.
Paulo, do you have any utility items that you like to say before we move on?
Yes, just one. It's the Ring of Mind Shielding, so it makes people who wear it immune from other beings reading their thoughts, or and they can't know if a person is lying, or if other people want to figure out their alignment, they won't be able to. You can also spend an action to make it invisible, so no one will suspect a thing. The most interesting aspect is that if you die, your soul actually enters the ring, unless there's already a soul in it. And if there is a soul in it, you can communicate with them telepathically, but there's no way of shutting that off. So if you have a very malevolent spirit in your ring, it's just going to constantly bother you throughout the whole thing, which is great for role playing, by the way, might I add.
Yeah.
So that is my utility.
That was on my list as well too. It is one of my favorite ones. So
Yeah,
good against
I honestly
vampires.
feel like that ring was introduced by Lex, and the spirit that he put in the ring is my spirit, and that's how he transported my spirit, and I was communicating with a player in the campaign the whole time. And now, kind of spoiler alert for those who still gonna watch our campaign, even though it's not was not recorded, the ring broke, and now my spirit has to be transported to another ring. So that's the fun in that.
Yeah. Since Lex isn't here yet, I guess we could do a couple bonus ones that you could literally cut out if you want to cut out.
That's fine.
And for me, that is the manual quickness of action, and this could be replaced by manual of whatever you want it to be. And basically, what these manuals are, they're very rare, wondrous items, and they're basically books you could find across the world. Your DM could implant them anywhere they want to, either at the end of a quest or just some sort of ancient library or some sort of arcane school. And what it does is that when a person reads this book, if they spend 48 hours over a 6-day period, or a little bit fewer, reading this book, basically their dexterity score increases by 2, and their maximum increases as well too. So that's something that, like, you could get a person who's got a 22 dexterity or a 22 wisdom or a 22 strength or something like that, and it's like a pretty fun item you could add to somebody. You could give to somebody. Another thing is the Ring of Three Wishes, and that is basically, yeah, exactly what it sounds like. It's a
Yeah.
a ring that you
good.
get to expend one of its 3 charges casting the wish spell.
Wow.
And once you cast all 3 of those, once all 3 charges are gone, it becomes a normal ring.
Can you think of a scenario where you put that item in there, like put in your session?
It would probably be an item used for a heist. Like, it would be an item that somebody very powerful wants you guys to help grab. The characters probably won't know what it is, and only that character would know what it is, unless you guys decide to investigate or do something with it, or do some research beforehand. But it would definitely be a item that would be sought after by somebody rich and very powerful.
Damn.
And then they would have the party try to find it for them.
That makes sense. Okay, cool. We can go ahead and move on to the next thing as well. Since
Okay.
Lex is not
So
here.
now, with that being said, we could go to the past tales of some of our magic items. So now that we've said a bunch of magic items that we like, and certain ways of how we would implement it into our campaigns or one shots, we're gonna be go ahead and talking about some of our previous tales of some of these items that we've said before, or other items we haven't said yet. Anyone want to begin?
Let me see in the top of my head real quick. I will let people go first because I'm still trying to think
Okay,
of
I have
different
one.
recollections.
Mine was my first ever one shot that I've ever DM'd for, and it was even though it was a one shot, we split up the two parts, and the second part, the party was able to find a room filled with gold, and then they had five, I believe, no six, yeah,
Hmm.
5 pillars, and each of those pillars had an item on top of it, and one of the items was weirdly enough a wand of fireballs.
Mm.
I was there. I was
Yes.
there. I remember
Yeah.
this.
That was your one shot.
And one of the players there had the wand of fireballs. Some of them were using their items. Like for example, Paulo did have the ring of mind shielding during that time, and it really helped against the mind flayers that they were fighting because they ended up fighting mind flayers in this cavern, and they managed to beat the mind flayers. But what they didn't notice was that what the mind flayers were protecting for a little further down was a gigantic elder brain, and and the way it was set up was that there was an elder brain in a gigantic glass tube, and above it on the floors they could see these giant chains on the floor that go upwards, and above that was a giant crystal that was 3 times the size of the elder brain above them that was chained up and harnessed up there. Some of them decided to like fight it, but then one of the players decided to cast a fireball onto the area, and it caused the chains, one of the chains to break, and it caused the thing above it to shift a bit. And then the player started to realize, oh crap, we don't have to just fight this thing; we could just kill it by destroying these chains. And then they eventually were able to destroy all those chains, and it came down. But it all came across because of the use of a magical item that wasn't
Nice.
even intended to be used that way.
And we
And that was one of
won.
my favorite moments of a magic item being used unintentionally to solve a problem.
Lex, just to update you, we are talking about past tales involving magic items. Unless you wanna go back, unless you wanna have like a little spiel about utility items that you haven't put in yet, because I know you wanted to talk about that.
Oh no, I mean it's just the quality of, or like the quantity rather, of the amount of things that you can do with a deck of many things. But
By
I
the way,
mean I can discuss that at a different. Sorry.
Lex, I have the deck of many things.
It's so pretty. Watch it, everybody. Zoom in on Robin's screen. That's amazing.
Yeah, I have
Mine.
all of the. Yeah, it has the list of the reference sheets of all of the stuff as well. Sorry for the virtual background. It's messing it up right now, but you guys know what I'm talking about.
No,
Yeah,
it's
I,
just the power of the deck of many things. It's
yeah.
just
It says prepare for
bursting into
chaos.
flames. Right.
Prepare for chaos. Yeah. So yeah, I just wanted to let you know that, and you left right when I was gonna introduce it. I'm like, no, Lex. Cool.
It's okay.
I'm gonna go ahead on. Oh, sorry, you were gonna say something.
No, I was just saying, with the deck of many things, it's fun because it basically, at that point, both the DM and the players don't know what's gonna happen. They have to be ready to just, even if the DM knows what's in the deck, they have to kind of just embrace and be prepared to do a complete shift, or know that one of your main characters may be have to create a new character or something, or that they've lost all of their key items they needed for the big main quest. So it's very interesting, and yeah, that's why I like that. So that's my little spiel about it.
On that note, thank you for talking about the deck of many things, mainly because what I'm going to be talking about involving my pastels involving magic items is the deck of many things. In one of my one shots, which includes a battle royale, heads up, if you're planning on playing a battle royale, make sure that you don't do a battle royale because D&D 5e is not meant for PvP. It's meant for group versus monsters. But you can try and see what happens. Just letting you know, you're probably gonna have a headache. Anyways, yeah. So I did a one-shot battle royale, and I put people in as there are 3 to 4 players, and they are level 12 through 15. Was it 15, Kiko?
It was 4 players, and everybody was level 15.
Everyone was off. They pretty much got like, and I told them that they would have one uncommon item and like a bunch of features. What they didn't realize is that when I 2 towers in the battlefield, on top of them, there was lonely piece of sack, and the sack in it is a bunch of messed up cards, deck of cards, and which happened to be the deck of many things. So one of the players pulled them out and decided that they would pull out, which one is it? Oh, a skull. And what the skull says is that you have to defeat the Dread Wraith or be forever destroyed. So once you pull that out, I had to conjure up a hole in the sky as Wraith just dropping down. This is pretty much a Grim Reaper whose sole objective is to get the player soul, the one who pulled them out. So that turned from PvP to this player now having to not only fend for himself but also have to defeat the Grim Reaper. Keep in mind, this was a wizard who was almost out of spell slots, I think. But yeah, there one of the other crazy stuff that we've also done is you have one of them pulled a rogue card, which is an NPC turns against you. And I made the NPC the announcer, aka the person who controls the weather, the elements of that arena. So now, when that NPC, when you put the card, I had the NPC, I'm gonna make a storm and focus solely on that player. So they fucked themselves over by pulling continuously from the deck of many things. There's a lot in here that could definitely break and change your game. So that's why we keep advising only do it when you know what you're doing. So yeah, I had fun with that, and so did Kikoh because he was in that one shot.
Fucking hell. Paulo, do you have a story?
Yes. My very first campaign that I was in, I was playing a monk, and I sucked at playing a monk, and I sucked at being a player, but that was me just starting out. And so my DM was like, let me give him a helping hand. And so it was during the night of my friend's initiation into this group, and that's when she multi-classed into barbarian, which was exciting.
Nice.
Which was a great segue, by the way. But her grandfather was also a monk, so I had one-on-one training with the almighty Grandpapa Milo, and the DM gave me these braces that would give me advantage to hit, which was very useful. And ever since then, I was able to just pretty easily. So it was great. It was fun, and I was happy because I was struggling being a first time player and all, and the DM just stepped in and be like, okay, let's make this a bit of a fun experience for you, and so that you feel like more included in the battle. So I appreciate that a lot.
Nice.
Good job. That's a fucking amazing story, man. I wish we want more DMs to be like that. Someone who helps include us in those things. We using magical items makes us feel more involved, as well as gives us more of an advantage, so we can easier be part of the game. That's a good way of applying magical items to your sessions. Definitely. Lex, do you have a tale involving magical items?
Gosh, I keep on thinking, I'm like, oh yeah, I have a good tale, and then I find out that, oh no, that was a homebrewed thing
Don't worry
that I
about
made.
it.
That could
Or-
count.
Yeah, that can be fun.
Yeah.
Homebrewed items are the
Okay.
best.
Well, because I don't want to jump our podcast, but I guess my favorite thing was that it was a one-on-one that I did for my friend Haley, who I was getting her more and more into understanding the mechanics of D&D, and she really wanted a donkey, and I was like, okay, let's make something interesting about him. And so his name was Fergus, and he had a pack on the back of his thing, and I said, okay, well, you've been traveling with Fergus for a while, so and she didn't even have a whatever accent I just tried to do. I just always call him Fergus. But the pack, what it could do was if she said a key phrase, and as you can tell, I'm a fan of items with key phrases, it would open and basically become like a stand-up thing where it had a little table where she could do her crafting, and it had some of her items in little containers, and then it also had a little cot with a little roof over her head, so she could be outside, and it would cover both Fergus and her from the elements, and she wouldn't have to make a tent. And her phrase that she used, because I was like, yeah, you just choose it, just make it whatever it could be. It could be a magic word, it could be a phrase. And she was like, okay, it's don't be a jackass. And I was like, that's fantastic. It's cute. It goes with the thing. But my favorite thing that she did was, because this thing had so many items that she cared about, and I also paired her with a little halfling who ended up being her kind of lifelong companion thing. And they had to leave Fergus, but they didn't want to leave their items. So she was like, I'll give it to my halfling. And so the halfling had it. They went into this monastery that ended up being overtaken by yetis. And there were thieves in there trying to get the mystical item at the bottom of the temple. Long story short, they killed all the yetis, or they helped, fight their way through it. And then eventually it was just thieves. They got the item, and she was the one who got it. And the thieves were all for it. They were like, okay, honor, except for one, who ended up going up behind her little gnomish friend or halfling friend and put a knife to his throat. And that's me being mean, because I was like, I'm not gonna let you keep that item. You're gonna, because I know that I'll put you in a moral dilemma. And so it's there. Everyone's looking at the sky. She's afraid her friend's gonna get killed. And then as we're talking, I'm describing the situation. She says, "Is he still wearing the backpack?" And I was like, "Yeah, I don't think he took." I just didn't think anything of it. And she was like, "Okay." I say, "Don't be a jackass." And I was like, and then I basically, what happens when she says it, it opens up the pack, and her friend ends up getting shot up above to be on the roof, and it blows back the guy who was holding the knife. I definitely gave her inspiration for that, and I definitely leveled her up after that encounter. But I thought it was one of the coolest things, because I literally didn't think it, because I just made it as a cool little utility of, that way you don't have to have a tent and bedrolls. You just say it and it happens, and it kind of makes it fun. But the fact that she used it, and Kikoh mentioned this, if you use an item in a way that it's not necessarily meant to, or you find a way for it to benefit the story, that made me so happy. I texted her after and was like, "This is only your 4th game, and you're so cool." And like, it blew my mind. So yeah, finding ways to make your items and utilize them in other ways than what they were meant to is a wonderful tip I would give. And that's my story.
Um,
Nice.
yeah.
Oh, and if
Go ahead,
again, this is the same Haley Kikoh, that if she comes in, I would love her to be in. So yes,
Dude, it's gonna happen. I just need to find a good spot for it.
okay, sounds good.
It,
Yeah.
it kind of just
That reminded me of. You
go ahead.
reminded me, Robin,
Of
of that freaking battle royale.
what about it?
And the one time I used a magic item out of desperation.
You
And
want to remind me?
that was the moment where, context, we had this battle royale that quickly turned into, instead of a 1v1v1v1 with 4 people, it ended up becoming a 3v1 with 3 people versus me. And it came to the point where they cornered me at one side of the map. And there was a druid there who also conjured animals. And so at that point, it was like maybe 8 or 9 to 1. And I still had my 2 turrets because I was an artillerist artificer. So I still had two things with me. But they cornered me. And I was like, fuck, alright, what the fuck could I do? They're gonna probably kill me in 2 turns. This is like, game over. I'm also low on spell slots. And so I just grabbed my bag. I was like, oh shit, I have this. And I just blew the horn of Valhalla. And it was one of those moments, it felt like that ending of like Lord of the Rings, of Return of the King, where everything seems lost. And then I just blew the horn. And then I rolled the dice. It ended up being 8 special barbarians that show up out of nowhere and just like cause chaos and maul everybody. Well, I mean, not everybody, but they were still like, not getting hit here and there, but their attention is now I could get away. And that without that item, I probably would have got skewered pretty fast.
Yeah. I remember that part. I think that was the moment when the players were thinking, maybe we can get him at this point, because honestly everyone was targeting him because he had like all of the artillery behind him. He was pretty much a mechanic that was just cranking out different turrets right there. And then all right, he's out of spells because he's been dropping spells like crazy since the start because everyone was out to get him. He was flexing hard, and yeah, you when you did that, I just saw everybody's jaws. I'm like, and I had to reread that actual item to make sure that it's doing exactly what it's supposed to do. And like, no, yep, you guys are fucked. He did the right thing. You got everybody going there. Good luck. And I just drop minis on the map saying, "Yep, that's right there. That's right there. That's right there." And they're like, "Oh, fuck this." So that was
To
a
be fair,
really
I was
good
I was
clutch move.
yeah, I was using a lot of defensive abilities, so I was using Blink and Auto Luke's Resilient Sphere in hopes that they would attack each other, but they started to just find a way to maneuver and try to kill me instead.
You're
So
the biggest threat,
I had
man.
to use it. I'm sorry.
It's
But
okay.
anyway,
It's okay, man.
if anybody else has anything else to say about their stories,
No.
nope. All right. Well, that looks like we have it today so far for magical items. Maybe we might revisit this one day if we want to go a bit more in depth on certain things. But because magic items are so vast, it's hard to just keep it into one video. But you know what? I think we did a pretty good job. So, with that being said, this is DMs and the PM. Thank you guys for joining us. Hopefully, you had a good time. Hopefully, you learned a few things. And remember, guys, roll well. May the natural 20s roll in your favor. Goodbye.
Bye bye now.
Bye,
Bye.
friends.